Welcome, everyone. We're going to give another maybe 15 or 20 seconds for everyone to get in, and then we will start. Okay, we have a full agenda, and probably it'll be tough to get everything into the hour, so we're going to go ahead and get started. First of all, welcome. Our practice is every time we start an event, we are asking that if you are not a member, you consider membership in NAWB. We're looking forward to having a really good year of events, including, of course, Forum that we're talking about this morning, this afternoon, depending on where you are. But that's something that we want to remind everybody helps us to provide better and better programming and services. So, as we make a practice, first, welcome to the autumn series of webinars. And we're going to start, as we do, with a poll question. So, Zach, if you can get that fired up. I think everyone can see it, but I'll go ahead and read it through. Do you have a good understanding of what jobs and corresponding skills sets will be most in demand in your community in the next 5 years? Give you a couple more seconds there. Right, quick sharing of results. Here's what it's looking like from the respondents so far. And yes, and sort of is leading. And hopefully the content of this webinar is actually going to be helpful to move sort of to yes. That is our goal here. So again, this is part of our fall series, Autumn in Action, our webinar series. We're hoping that you are able to, I'm sorry, I, I'm going to go ahead and start sharing the screen so we can see the agenda, and we'll get started from there with introductions. Okay, here's our agenda for the webinar. First of all, a welcome and a very warm thank you to our participants from industry associations or associations that are connected to industries. From CEWD, we have Missy Hendrickson. She will be providing a presentation a little bit later during the hour. From NCCER, we have Kayleen Smith. Both of them are our leads, meaning these organizations are our lead organizations for the new career zone. They're going to be speaking a bit about why it's a good opportunity for them. It, in our opinion, is a very good opportunity for our members. And our members are going to benefit from this because the greater voice and visibility of industries and industry association will raise the value of the forum for all participants. I'm going to go through the full agenda here, and then we'll start into the slides talking about the details of the career zone. So part of why we wanted to have the career zone was to create an opportunity for our membership to connect to industry associations, but do so in a way that was beneficial for the industries. And the input we received during this past year was that the model of the sponsor zones was not a good fit really for industry associations. They really want to participate in the conference. They want to be in the sessions. They don't want to have to be at a table for the full conference as the other sponsors are in the sponsor zone. If you recall the framework of our forum, when you walk into the center area where everything's happening socially, first you're in the sponsor zone, then you see the town square, and this coming year, behind the town square will be the career zone. And the career zone is only going to be operating at a limited number of times during forum. But this is purposefully to try to get voice and visibility for industry associations without making their own experience of forum less than what they want it to be. That's something we'll get into in a little more detail in a moment. We're also going to be talking about the new career cluster framework from Advanced CTE. It is the first update in a long number of years. For many years, as many of you know, there were 16 career clusters. They have just announced the new career cluster framework. It is now 14 clusters. We're going to be talking about that in a little bit of detail. Two questions or assignments that we want you to be thinking about as we go through the presentation, as we talk about what we're doing in the career zone. Which industries are specifically relevant for your community? And who should you be inviting? Who should you be reaching out to ahead of forum to make sure that they're present? One of the differences for Career Zone is that it's very much all about what you do before forum rather than waiting for forum. Part of the reason that we're having this webinar is to let people know ahead of time that this is a new opportunity, and for those people, our members, people who are getting ready to come to forum, to think who should be there? Who are the industries that really are important for our community? How do we make sure that we make the best use of time when we get to forum to connect with industry associations? So those are questions and thoughts that we want you all to be thinking about as we go forward. So the career zone, as I said, is a new part of NAWB Town. It is going to be that specific area that you'll be directed to on two different occasions. On each of the full days, so it's March 30th and 31st, on each of those full days, there will be 1 hour near the end of the afternoon when you know that the career zone is going to be operating, and all of the industry association personnel, all of the people representing different industries are going to be present there. However, it's not a meeting or a presentation time. It is simply intended to be a chance to speed date, to connect, to continue a conversation, to schedule the next conversation. It's not intended to be the time for meetings. It's intended to be the time to organize and to follow up and to make sure that the conversations you want to have are taking place. So for our partners, those industry associations and groups that are present, we're giving them a voice and visibility in a way that works for them. But the way it's going to work best for our members and attendees is if you're thinking about what's going to happen at Career Zone and how you can best use the time when it comes. Here is one of what I think is the best way to view it. And I'm going to get it a little bigger and move it around. I know you can't see everything when I do this, but this makes it a little more visible. The cross-cutting clusters you see there, these are not industry specific. These are function specific. These are occupation specific. So those three cross-cutting clusters are 3 of the 14, but they're not really our focus in terms of representation. What we would really like to do is have at least one, but hopefully two associations or organizations representing each of the other 11. So, for example, NCCR is construction. And if I move over here, CEWD represents energy and natural resources. Now there's overlap as well. In fact, you would say that, each of these associations may say we actually have a foot in some of these other clusters. And we're not trying to be too cute about it. We just want to make sure that we use the framework and structure as best we can to try to get representation. So if in your community you know that healthcare and human services has a lot of employment and you would like for somebody to be at Forum to represent that industry, please, please reach out to them, reach out to us, let us know who we should be talking to so we can get somebody there at Forum to represent that cluster. I just want to give you a chance to see all of them here, all of the 14. They are bunched in these categories, but again, some do cover a variety of industry activities. So again, that's just a quick look. What we want you to do is to think about which industries are most relevant for you, for your purpose. Who would you like to have there? How do we make sure they're there? How do we make sure we reach out and let them know about this opportunity? And I think you're going to hear from these two that this is something that is a great way for them to be present at Forum. But there are a bunch of industry associations out there who don't know we're doing this. We need to get the word out, and your help is best. So the second question here, I've already sort of previewed it. The hint is it's all about what you do before Forum begins. We want everybody coming into Forum knowing that these 2 hours are going to happen and they've got a plan for the 2 hours. We're going to be publicizing as we go in the coming couple of months leading into Forum. We're going to be advertising who's on the list, what representation there is already. You'll know who's going to be there so you can make a plan, but also, so if there's a gap, you can let us know and direct us to connect to industry associations we don't yet have covered. All right. I'm going to stop my sharing. I think that we've mentioned there's not a whole lot of time this hour. We got a lot of great content coming from both Missy and Kayleen. So I'm going to right now turn it over to Missy and mention, as she's about to share her slides, mention that she's going to need to be gone at the end of the hour. And if you have questions specifically for her, if you could put them in the chat and we'll make sure she has a chance to answer at the end of her presentation. So Missy, thanks so much and take it away.
So bear with me 1 second here. Here we go. All right, there we go. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. As Jay said, I'm Missy Henriksen. I work as the Executive Director for the Center for Energy Workforce Development. Grateful for the opportunity to be here with everyone today, and was actually pleasantly surprised by the results of the polling for those of you who indicated where you are and your familiarity about energy-focused jobs in your communities. While we all have a lot to learn in there, I'm going to give you an A on the results of that test that was done, because I think you obviously know a lot more than many people about what's ahead in this space, and glad to hear that. Let me offer you just a quick context to who our organization is so you understand the lens through which I see the workforce development opportunities that are building in the energy sector. CEWD has been around for a little shy of 20 years. And as I always say, we were doing workforce development before it was cool and trendy. And our purpose as an organization is to ensure the development of a skilled and diverse energy workforce. We work with about 140 energy companies, and primarily those represent utilities. We also serve as the workforce development arm for about 10 different trade associations in our space, and you'll see those represented there on the screen. Most of those are large national policy-oriented organizations that really focus on the technology side of the energy evolution. We also work actively with labor in our space because of the important role that the skilled technicians there offer to the energy sector. We really recognize the importance of the industry working as a united on a united front to make sure that as we're looking at the people skills that are needed for the energy evolution, we are doing so with the we mentality. It's not an us versus them. Doesn't matter if the individuals we're courting are going to end up in solar, or wind, or nuclear, or natural gas, or electric, whatever it may be. We need people to fill the seats that are important in the industry. We need the skill sets such as engineering, electricians, welders, anyone whose second job, the word in their job title is technicians. We need all of those individuals, and we'll build that out a bit today. But we are agnostic, and we do really represent we do really understand the importance of the industry working together as a united sector. Who we are today as an industry, a little north of 8 million people working in the industry. We are seeing higher than average growth rate within the industry as we look at other sectors out there. And it really speaks to the investments that have been made specifically by the Biden-Harris administration. I'm sure you all are familiar with the three pieces of legislation that have really changed the dynamics of workforce development in the energy sector over the past year and a half. A lot to be determined as we move forward, what those jobs continue to look like, the timing, the pace, what the new administration may offer that may impact the world of workforce development and energy. As we look at the sector as a whole, you'll see that some of the largest areas of growth are utilities and construction, and energy efficiency firms did add the most jobs. Again, the reason for us to look at the industry as a whole, because we can only be as strong as the weakest link in our ecosystem. Yeah. We need all elements, including manufacturing, to be strong, and we're really challenged by some of the shortages that we're experiencing as an industry. Because some portions of the industry don't have the people they need, much like our daily lives, right? Not enough baristas, not enough people working in the healthcare system. So we're really challenged. And again, we'll build that out as we go through the course today. CEWD, like many organizations, is really has a strong lens on DE&I. The companies that we have the opportunity to serve are really focused on ensuring their workforces reflect the communities in which they operate. We do continue to see that women and Black Americans are most underrepresented in our workforce. We've been doing a lot of work as an organization and the companies that we represent to ensure a more diverse workforce, but we certainly have a ways to go, particularly with women and people of color. As we look at the industry today, and as I referenced the three key pieces of legislation that have passed over the past year and a half, are really doing a lot to create opportunities. We do expect to hire 32 million people over the next 10 years. So as Jay was setting the stage of maybe why you want to come to the career pavilion, we really need to look collaboratively at how we're going to find these individuals, create equitable pathways for employment, what the training needs are so that as communities we can be prepared for the ecosystem to support the training needs, whether it's technical colleges, community colleges, workforce boards, workforce systems, partnerships with community-based organizations. We really have to get creative and change the narrative for workforce development as it exists today. We cannot rely on past practices that have guided developing that talent pipeline. I think you all probably know this more than many folks out there. there's not enough people to do any jobs. I think data would traditionally say there's about 4 million too few people to do the jobs in any given day. We obviously have looked at challenges from the pandemic, decreased international migration, people that are pursuing jobs in the gig economy, but we are really feeling that in the energy sector. Workforce development in our businesses has gone from, hey, HR, go get us some people, to not just a C-suite priority, but specifically a CEO priority. We have our Workforce Development Summit taking place next week, and we have CEOs from some of the larger energy companies in the industry who will be talking about what's keeping them up at night in the workforce development space. That's a first for us. Again, we've been seeing this increasing level of interest, this increasing engagement. We've been seeing C-suite executives throwing out, oh, workforce development for probably about a year and a half, 2 years now. But the difference of understanding of what that really means has been an evolutionary area of growth. I'm going to talk about some of the work that we're doing in this space, and again, some of the things that we hope to carry on deeper conversations with you all at the forum. Our work is really broken down into 4 different bucket areas. First of all is increasing visibility of energy jobs. We continue to see that people don't understand the breadth of opportunities that exist. And even if they do, there are perceived barriers for how you get started. We're seeing that particularly with Gen Z. There's some very favorable numbers, and I don't think I have them in this presentation, but very favorable numbers of Gen Z wanting to pursue jobs in energy, but they don't understand how to get engaged. And as we look at communities of people who are underrepresented in the industry, definite need for greater visibility. If you haven't had 5 generations of uncles or dads or brothers working in the industry, not only are you not aware of the opportunities, but you may have some challenges that others don't, of getting your foot in the door and understanding pre-employment tests that may be asked of you or whatever it may be in that space. Right there with the career awareness goal, as I've referenced, is our DE&I goal, and we're doing a lot there to blend this visibility of jobs. And if you get excited about it, how can we ease the pathway of entry points? Training and development, anything in this space is really in a constant state of change right now. And some of that reference, it connects back to the career clusters that Jay just mentioned. We are incredibly grateful to have the new Energy and Natural Resources Career Cluster. This is one of the most significant areas of change we could look at as workforce development professionals in this sector in many, many years. And we're doing a lot, and we'll unpack that in just a minute or two. And then we are showing up differently in how we represent ourselves as an industry and how we provide feedback to our workforce development professionals from those in the workforce system. Right now, I think if you talk to many energy companies, they do policy really well. We as an organization do workforce development really well. But historically, there's been a siloed with a lot of gray area in the middle of policy here, workforce over here. We've recognized the importance of bringing those things together. And I think we're starting to see greater interest in energy companies, particularly utilities, that are trying to get more involved with their workforce systems. Hopefully you all are experiencing that in your local communities. I'm not going to go through all of these in great details, but I wanted to put a little bit more muscle on the bone of what our goal areas mean on a daily basis, in case any of these types of activities or initiatives or resources could be helpful to you in the work that you're doing. First of all, I've referenced a couple of times the importance of bringing greater visibility to energy careers. Our board has approved a $35 million investment to make energy careers more visible across the country. We're fundraising for that, but we are taking some baby steps in that space. Some of the work we're doing there has to do with our Troops to Energy Jobs program, doing a lot more to connect veterans or transitioning servicemen and women into energy careers. We just finished up Careers in Energy Week. We have dozens and dozens and dozens of pieces of collateral. It's all open source. You're welcome to use it, that delineate what the career pathways are in various jobs in the energy sector. Some of the most in-demand jobs, trying to drive individuals to our Get Into Energy career site, which is one-stop shopping for career seekers and career explorers. And it does link with our job board. So anyone can put in their zip code and it will identify different jobs in their community and they can take a deeper dive in some of those spaces. And working with a lot of organizations like NAWB and others to really provide the brass tacks on some of the different jobs that are available and how people should be preparing in that space. Again, highlight views here and happy to take a deeper dive through questions or when we're together in March. And here's some of the slides that I mentioned, or some of the facts that I mentioned earlier. Specifically, we are targeting Gen Z workers because so many of the opportunities that exist for any energy careers really align with their personal values, personal commitments. And so we really need to do a better job as a sector helping these folks identify how they can take some of these proactive steps forward. See the picture there. We were at the FFA show in Indianapolis a couple weeks with 72,000 blue corduroy jacketed individuals and showing them our jobs through VR headsets. So it was pretty cool. We're gonna have the same headsets at the NOB meeting. So if you want to come try some things out, I will tell you I did the line worker training program where you get to restore power to an entire community. And as a person of my age, I think I was nauseous for about 3 days of kind of looking down on the community. Next, supporting increasingly technical and dynamic energy jobs. Most of the work we do in this space is pre-hire. Again, building that talent pipeline. We have been working very actively on the energy and natural resources career cluster in terms of making a case for it over the past couple of years. And then one of my colleagues served on the committee that was helpful in recommending this as a path forward. And we in our industry were very active in the final language that came out with the career cluster approval. Now that that's done, which has been the number one item on our list for years, our work is not done, but really only just beginning. We are working on the development of a national competency and framework for energy education for high school students. That will be available by the end of this year. We will then, and it basically says grades 9, 10, 11, 12, here's what learners should be exposed to. We're working with about 60 subject matter experts, including educators, Department of Energy, employers, labor, et cetera, to make sure that it's really a collective voice in how we're defining this. We will then move to post-secondary, and then once funding is secured, we will move to K-8. We also are utilizing our energy industry fundamentals curriculum, which is free, open source curriculum. It's about a 120-hour instructor-led course to take high school students and post-secondary learners at all ages into learning about the industry and its various career paths. If anyone's interested in learning more about that, we're happy to make connections. We are seeing a lot of community-based organizations use this in their education and awareness about energy careers. It will be available in Spanish by the end of this year, and we have just secured funding to have it adapted for tribal communities, and that will be available Q1 of 25. As I mentioned earlier, energy employers are doing a lot to change the way that they have historically done hiring. We are seeing some things that have been hard no's in the past move to either yeses or why nots. Among those are moving towards skills-based hiring and where they can, moving away from degree requirements. We've seen utilities historically not hire from the reentry community. We are seeing movement in that space as well. We are offering the EIF program. We're working with the Department of Justice to have this offered in a variety of different prison systems and working in parallel paths with that on employers who we can pilot actually some reentry hiring programs. Things like start times for shift workers, language requirements historically have been a definite English first language requirement. We're seeing a lot of those things continue to change and evolve. I'm going to move a little quickly here. Jay, don't panic. We'll stay within time zone or time allocation. But we are also seeing increased importance of partnership is really becoming the key priority for a lot of companies that traditionally have kind of gone it alone. If you think about utilities in a lot of communities, people know who they are. They're the utility. They're a square on the monopoly board. And they haven't had to be as aggressive in workforce development of the talent pipeline as they have more recently. So they are better not better. I don't mean to say anything has been negative before. It's just a different time, but they are engaging more actively with the various groups that you might expect for industry business partners that really understand the challenges that they have facing them and trying to be more proactive in developing or expanding relationships they may have from a workforce development component. We've referenced a couple of times just the new conversations that are taking place. You'll see some of them here. We've talked about a couple of them, a couple we haven't. Um, Registered apprenticeship programs, obviously a big topic of conversation in the workforce development community. A couple of years ago, most utilities that we had conversations with them about RAPs, that was a hard no to everything, right? Too hard, too expensive, too time consuming, too much paperwork, too whatever. Put in your adjective like it's a Mad Lib. Um, and we are finding that because of government incentives, I don't know if they're sticks or carrots, a lot of those same companies that were hard nosed have gone to how soon can we have a wrap put in place? And so we've been working in that area and helping provide companies with the technical assistance to turn existing training programs into wraps. And we are hopeful to provide greater leadership in developing industry created wraps for new and emerging energy tech. Right now, a lot of companies, as you may have seen, have their own individual registered apprenticeship programs. And it's just too hard, particularly for training providers to train to this company's program or that company's program. So as we look at what's ahead, we're not going to change line worker programs or gas tech programs, but we want to make sure as we're moving forward, we can do things collectively. The first area of priority for us is in cybersecurity. All of the utilities would like to develop their, I'm not going to say all of the utilities. A lot of utilities would like to develop an industry cyber wrap as their first priority. And then we've got some other ones in the pipeline. Um, we are seeing more of a focus on good jobs. Again, I think traditional utilities would say that they have really been operating under some of the principles from DOL and Department of Commerce, but there's more of an interest there, again, I think because of some grant funding. Community benefit plans have been an area of increased importance because of requirements from DOE. We'll see where that may go in the new administration, but lots of interest in some of those areas. Not all companies understand WIOA. And as we talk about what we've had to do as an industry in the past and where we are now, a big opportunity for education. We are trying to do a lot from our end, and we're grateful for NAWB's partnership in that. But I think that there's a lot that can be done to better connect the understanding first of workforce systems and workforce boards and how WIOA operates with energy employers. If any of you need any assistance, you're not already connected with any of the utilities in your communities, we are happy to provide a dating app there, a matchmaking service, and make those connections. We think it's good for workforce development, good for workforce, or good for our organizations, and ultimately good for the people in the communities. We do have about 20 state workforce development consortia, which is employers, labor, educators, sometimes workforce systems working together. If you are not connected with an energy workforce consortia in your community, we're happy to make some introductions there. Let me just I'm going to conclude with this in the interest of time. Our Workforce Development Summit is next week. We'll have close to 400 workforce development professionals from around the country there to talk about workforce for 3 days. One of the events that I would bring to this group's attention, if anyone is somewhat local, on the 21st, we're having something that we think is pretty cool. We are doing the Energy Careers Discovery Zone. It's a chance for experiential learning for 30 different jobs in the industry. You can come fly a drone, you can splice a cable, you can go in these mobile education labs, and you can put on lots of VR headsets. So the information is there. It is free, but we do ask for pre-registration. And it is for those who impact the policies, practices, and people of workforce development. It is not a job fair. Information is on our website. And that's all I got. And I'm getting close to time there. So I'm going to pull this down and see if we've got time for questions, or if you want to, I don't want to take Kayleen's time.
I think we can take, 1 minute at most, but if there are any specific questions right now, let's go ahead and have them from the group.
This is Pam Strike. I'm from Pennsylvania. Can you let me know, or I can email you, maybe that would be the better way, of who we would connect with, um, You mentioned all the different places. We're not connected. We're in a rural area, but I'd love to learn more about what's available in PA.
Thanks for the question, Pam. We do work with a lot of employers in PA. We do work with the large investor-owned utilities, also the rural cooperatives as well. We are
Oh, okay.
directly or indirectly connected with every single utility that exists in the country. So happy to do some matchmaking there. And
So
also
maybe we are more connected than I realize. But
maybe I'd love
yeah,
to think that we are. I did just put our staff email address in the chat, so feel free to reach out there. I would put the disclaimer as mentioned. Our conference is next week, so it's responses will be a bit delayed right now.
I'll be at a conference too next week. It's all good. No worries. Thank you.
Time for one more quick question, and then we'll move on to Kayleen. Erin?
Is there any way to get a list of the people from our state that are attending your conference so we can connect with them?
Why don't you email offline? I'll put my direct email in here, and
That would be great.
please email and let me know. My email is a different one. Long story, won't get into it. And I'll just close by saying thank you again for the time. This is a historic moment in the industry. It's a watershed opportunity, particularly as we look at creating equitable pathways for those who have not had them into the energy workforce. So we are grateful and really recognize the need to be doing more with you all and looking forward to doing so.
Thank you, Missy, very much. And we appreciate your time. And Kayleen, I think you have a guest also with you, so I'm going to turn it over to you and roll with it.
Yeah, he had to leave. Unfortunately, his schedule got messed up, so it will just be me.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Happy to do it. I actually worked with him for years, so I think I can speak on his behalf, if I need to. So thank you for having me. Sorry, I had an echo there. Um, I'm at Kayleen Smith. I'm one of the Workforce Development or NCCER. For those of you not familiar, NCCER stands for the National Center for Construction, Education, and Research. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do, how we work. We're a little different than an association, but we do have a lot of the same goals. So we'll talk a little bit about that. You can read our mission and our vision statement, but I can sum it up in just a one sentence. We are a nonprofit that is here to promote the skilled trades. We need to get more skilled trade workers into the field, and NCCR's goal is to do that. We do that in a few different ways. We do that by producing curriculum and helping organizations develop programs for training. We do a lot of outreach. We do a lot of research on how we can get different populations into construction. So a lot of different things in that way to get that skilled trade workers into the system. So as I mentioned, we are a nonprofit. We were created in 1996. So if you look back on how we were created, we had construction CEOs, associations, and leaders come together. And what they were looking for, they wanted a worker who was trained in New York. If that worker left and went to California, to that worker to have an industry credential that allowed the new employer to know what he was trained in, that he was trained in a standardized training, and that everything was uniform. So trying to standardize that across the country was a very unique thing, but they did it. And now NCCER has evolved. We have over 40 different craft areas. We're actually expanding into a lot of leadership, superintendent, foreman training. We're doing a lot more online while still having some programs that are still heavy on the hands-on because that is a big part of construction. But we're always moving forward with what the industry needs. Pearson is our publisher. So all of our materials are sold through Pearson because we are a nonprofit. But we are in over almost 7,000 training and assessment locations across the United States. Because not only do we do training, but we also do journey level assessments. Those would be for if an employer wanted to do pre-hiring screening to see if the electrical guy that came to him and said he had 10 years electrical experience actually had that experience. And the good thing about our assessments is they also give a training prescription. So that employer could decide whether he wanted to develop a training program and keep that person into their employment, or they could get them the credentials. So that's just some of that. So where are we? The best part of my job, the part I actually love so much every day is right now I'm covering almost 20 states for NCCER. There's a couple others of me, but every day I pick up the phone, I get an email. I have no idea who I'm talking to, where they're from, what their training problem is, but I get to try to figure out if we have a solution that can help them. Do I need to partner them with somebody? Do I get them into our network? How do we do that? And being able to do that is kind of exciting for me every day. As you can see, I could be talking to a community college one moment, turn around the next day and talk to someone in corrections. We've got all of our contractors that are a big part of our business, but we've also got, organized labor associations, all kinds of different folks. So lots of opportunity to learn from folks and to share things with each other. So I mentioned we have a lot of different things we offer besides the curriculum. For example, our workforce development solution. We have accreditation. We accredit organizations to do training based on our standards. Kind of like a college would have an accreditation. We make sure they're following our standards. They're making sure their instructors are getting trained. We have a whole program to bring someone out of the field and train them so they can be an instructor and impart the knowledge that they know into those new workers. Gives them a lot more confidence. They may not realize what a great teacher they are. They could have been doing it for years in the field, but we empower them to do that and make sure they know how to use everything correctly. Again, our curriculum is industry driven. We could not do it without our industry partners who advise us. As we all know, every career has changed a lot with technology. Construction is not unique to that, but there are so many different things. We update our curriculum every 3 to 5 years to keep it current, and we have a group of subject matter experts for every one of our curriculum from across the United States giving their input. Again, I mentioned the industry recognized credentials. Those have become very huge. A lot of the high schools now are using our curriculum because those industry recognized credentials are pathways to graduations. The community colleges are using them because they're funding. They can get funding for those micro credentials, those industry recognized credentials. So lots of good stuff with those. We also have a free part of our business that is completely free to anyone. It's our Build Your Future and Career Starter, kind of similar to what Missy mentioned. We call it our Match.com of construction, where students can make a profile, they can build a resume, they can apply for entry-level jobs right there in the construction. They can also look up training. They can find where training's available in their area or across the country if that's something they're interested in. So a lot of good things there. And our Build Your Future is our awareness. That is where we have a lot of free information, lesson plans, things for teachers, things to roll out in the classroom. I used to use that a lot. I'm from a community college background. For National Apprenticeship Day, when I'd go speak at different areas, I would take a lot of that information there. And as I mentioned, our new foray into superintendent and foreman training. So lots of good things to bring someone from entry-level career clear up into a superintendent role. So Jay mentioned the career cluster. I can't say that 3 times fast. Career cluster groupings. We are lucky enough to touch into a few of them. Of course, the building and moving and construction, that's a no-brainer for us. We have lots of titles that would fit in there. Some of our more popular are our carpentry, our electrical, our plumbing, heavy equipment, HVACR, just all those. But we are now touching into cultivating resources. We're going to join Missy in the agriculture and energy and natural resources. I was actually at the FFA conference also with all the blue coats a couple weeks ago. So we roll out our new agricultural and construction curriculum in 2025. We're really excited about that. We partnered with FFA and the National Agricultural Council, so that will be co-branded with them. But we've also got some energy programs that have become really popular in the last few years with a lot of apprenticeship programs being built using them. With our solar voltaic, our wind turbine, we have power, lots of different things in the energy sector. So I mentioned we have over 40 different craft areas and that we use subject matter experts. But another big thing with our curriculum is that it does meet or exceed the industry standards for Department of Labor's registered apprenticeship programs. It is built in levels, just like an apprenticeship program would be. But what we're seeing more and more, as Missy mentioned, where people are building registered apprenticeships, pre-apprenticeships, because our curriculum's modular, people are able to pick and choose and build their own program. We've had a couple organizations work with us on new kind of solar programs and picking and choosing what they wanted from several of our titles that make sense to what they're needing on the job. I'm going to talk here in a minute about a partnership where I used to work at Ivy Tech Community College in Indiana. And we used it all the time for workforce training, where a company would come and say, hey, we need a certain type of welding or something to get our guys on the job. We were able to build that training for them and do that for them quick so they could get on that job using the modular format of NCCER. So this is where my buddy Joe, who is going to be with me, he's the Vice Chancellor of Ivy Plus and CareerLink in Fort Wayne. We were going to talk about a partnership we worked. As I mentioned, I worked for Ivy Tech. I was the Director of Apprenticeship and Work-Based Learning there. And I was approached by our workforce boards, Northeast Indiana Works, about building a program for the skilled trades underemployed. They had grant funding, they had secured funding, and they just needed a way to do this training. Well, we started out with Ivy Tech at the table, myself, Joe, others, and then we had Northeast Indiana Works, and we pulled in the Northeast Indiana Building Trades because Ivy Tech ran a registered apprenticeship with them. The problem there was negotiating curriculum. We knew what they wanted, but all of those Indiana building trades, you know, we had the electricians, the carpenters, masonry, sheet metal, they all had their own curriculum, which was great curriculum, fit what they needed perfectly. But in order to get that together, we were piecemealing things back and forth and in together. We finally approached, because Ivy Tech had become accredited with NCCER in 2014, that we had this solution that we thought would work. We were able to use our core curriculum, which is our entry-level curriculum, and build out a program that worked. So utilizing the NCCR curriculum and the Ivy Tech accreditation, we not only got those students through that, we got them industry credential from NCCER, and they actually got college credit for their building construction class 100, which was their entry-level class if they ever wanted to come to Ivy Tech and pursue farther. So it was a win-win for everyone, and using NCCER made it a great way to do that. It was a solution that was there. We used a carpentry union employee to be the instructor, NCCER credentialed. It was wonderful. The best part of it was, though, we did have a career fair where the building trades brought out folks. We only had about 10 students in this first class. They've run some more since I've left, but we were able to get every one of those students hired by a contractor, and many of them had multiple offers. So again, it was a great partnership with the three entities, and it was a wonderful way to use NCCER and Ivy Tech's accreditation to give the students some benefits. So I hope I didn't go over, Jay, but that is what I have. I am more than happy to talk further with anyone. If I don't cover your state, I can put you in touch with one of my coworkers. But again, I could talk NCCER all day long. I was a customer for many years before I worked for them. So I can give you all kinds of examples and ideas.
Thank you, Kayleen. That was perfect timing. And so first, if we have questions specific for Kayleen, let's do those first. Aaron?
Who covers Maine?
Let me see who's having me. Right now, that would be Nicole Kittler.
Thank you.
That was an easy question. No one's going to
Well,
get
you know.
Oh, we've got someone just coming in. If there are any questions about what we're doing at Forum or with the Career Zone, I'd like to answer those. And again, I just want to make the pitch that we're trying to get people aware of what we're doing so that we can get representation from all of the 11 clusters. And if you have any ideas, we're very open to those. Also, I'd like feedback if you don't mind, and there's yes, I will put into the chat the slide with the clusters, but you can also go to the I think it's careertech.org, and you'll find a huge amount of information about the clusters. Any other questions specific for Kayleen or yes, sorry, Aaron.
I have one about the career clusters. I don't know if this is
Okay.
how does this align with the NAICS codes? Because I tried to pull it up quickly because I noticed that
Mhm.
some of the language is different. And so how does this connect?
They have information on their site with about some of the crosswalks with NAICS codes. So you do have alignment. However, I would say that you'll see that there's a lot of overlap. But the best thing to do, I would say, is go to careertech.org. They have information there that will be the best source for that kind of question. They also have, I'm sorry.
It's just that I know that you can pull a lot of data down on NAICS codes. So it's just interesting that they are a little different.
There is a lot that you can go through to see what the purpose and the priorities were in the new when they opened it for input as to what the 14 clusters would be. They do have a good amount of information to talk through that, including how it relates to NAICS codes. I don't think that you're going to find a perfect answer for every question in that regard, but there is a rationale. Any other questions? I was starting to say earlier that if you find it helpful for us to have additional webinars with representation from industry associations, et cetera, we would like to hear from you. Anything that helps us make the forum event more valuable to attendees is what we want to accomplish here. So last chance for any additional questions before we wrap it up. Well, I know that Missy had to go, so I can't thank her directly, but we'll thank her for her participation. And Kayleen, thank you so much for being available and participating. We hope this is just the beginning of a focus on the career zone at Forum and finding a way to connect the dots for everyone. Thank you all for participating, and we look forward to you attending the next in the series of webinars from NAWB. Bye all.